We're all against crime. But what if the person being attacked as a criminal is actually someone who is sharing the gospel legally, constitutionally? We're going to talk about a case just like that we have in the state of Florida. But the first half of the show, I want to talk to one of our attorneys, Michael Peffer, about a very serious situation we see taking place, not just in California, but it's something that we see it's going to be spreading across the country, and that is a revolution in sex education. I'm going to say right up front, if there's a minor listening to this broadcast, parents, use your discretion, because what we've discovered is a revolution in sex education that is manifesting itself in a horrific way, a way that many parents have no idea is taking place. Michael, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Brad.
Now, Michael, this situation with regards to sex education in California in particular, I know this is important because it's not going to stop in California. It's going to spread to other parts of the country. We already see other cities like Austin, Texas, for example, Texas, already emulating outrageous curriculum that many parents are just shocked about there in the state of Texas, other cities as well. But California, on a statewide basis, is institutionalizing horrific new quote-unquote sex education. Tell me more.
Well, Brad, I think every reasonable person would agree that the best place for this kind of information to be dispensed is by parents. Parents who can do by their own value structure, whatever that is, every parent deserves to have their own value structure with which they teach these kinds of things. Sex ed is at the top of that list. And I remember a time when there was a lot of controversy about just the increase of, if you will, normal sexuality being taught in the public schools, because many parents thought, you know what, this could go haywire. I want to teach my children this. But now we've shifted away from that, and now we are not just teaching more about sex ed. We are pushing this amoral philosophy that says whatever you want to do, you can do it. I don't care how old you are. Even if you're in first grade, we're going to teach you about heavy-duty sexual topics. Well,
like what? I mean, we're not talking just about the birds and the bees. A lot of parents have no problem if the school shows a film saying this is a diagram what a boy looks like, this is what a girl looks like, this is where babies come from. We just learn the basics of this is where things were, this is how things are. Any questions? No questions? Okay, done. But we're talking about lifestyles, sexual lifestyles, and sex acts outside that which is associated with traditional sexual intercourse and that kind of a topic.
That's right.
What are we talking about here? Well, parents need to know what's coming to a school district near them.
Well, we're talking about teaching young children about masturbation. We're talking about teaching.
Now, you say young children. Are we talking about a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, or are we talking about someone?
We're talking about first graders, second graders, third graders. We're talking about at any age where the teacher believes it's appropriate, because the state does not mandate this kind of training to that young of students. But if the teacher thinks it's appropriate, it's going to happen.
Right. The door is wide open.
That's right.
For school districts to do that. It's up to their discretion. And yet parents, are parents going to know about this?
You know, the sad thing is, Brad, the parents may never find out about this until their child comes home and says, Mommy or Daddy, I think I should be a girl when I'm really a boy.
Right. And we've seen that happen before. There's a charter school in the Rockland Academy. They're in Rockland, California, near Sacramento.
That's right.
A kindergarten teacher decides to read a storybook to little kindergartners all about how a boy decided he wanted to be a girl, and so he put on dressed like a girl, and he became a girl. And then there was a child in the class where the child was excused to go to the restroom, allegedly put on clothes, looking like a girl, came back, and all the class clapped and welcomed him as a girl.
That's right.
And it is disgusting. And the parents who are behind this, and I'm not going to give more information than that, they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yes. Absolutely
Ashamed of themselves for what they acquiesced to with regard to their child. You know, Michael, many people don't know this, but if a child is just left alone and they say they have this struggle, say they have some confusion, say there's not a dad at home, or certain circumstances for whatever reason, they're confused, or they have peer-to-peer bonding is not what it was, so they think they get along better with their girls. They're not sure. And if those children are just left alone, the overwhelming majority of those kids, if just left alone, will work it through, not have this confusion, dysphoria by the time they're into adolescence. And yet, what we see taking place now is school districts with this mantra, this new quote-unquote progressive mantra, I call it a disgusting mantra, are now pushing these children, encouraging it, nurturing it, and the end result is death for most of them by the age of 30.
Right.
And that's why this is so horrific, and yet it's taking place. So they're being taught, if a parent has a child in public school or charter school in California, the door is wide open for young children in first grade to learn about, you said, masturbation. What else? What else can parents, they need to know about this.
Right.
It is a revolution taking place right now in public schools, and any parent having their child in a public school needs to realize what a spiritual genocide is about to take place, potentially with their child. What else is taking place?
Well, there's other teachings about sodomy, about even intercourse is when taught in the way that they're pushing this. And the bottom line is, this is not teaching about how sexuality happens. This is pushing, and you use that term, and I think it's an adequate and great term, pushing the children in this direction. We're not informing them. We are pushing them to accept this valueless use of sexuality, something God created. We are pushing them to view it as having no values, no touch with morals, and no, whatever you feel, that's what's right.
Now, the state-approved curriculum, as I understand it, it talks not only about masturbation, also talks about oral sex. It talks about anal sex. It talks about oral anal sex.
Right.
And quote unquote the safe way to do it. And they say, and they capture this. Get this. They capture this under the topic of abstinence. Right. See, I thought abstinence, the way it was taught before, is you don't engage in sex, period. They say, no, this is abstinence because these are sexual activities that won't result in pregnancy. Right. And they're pushing this stuff. And we also understand that organizations like Planned Parenthood are being brought in as well. Correct?
They are being brought in to not just be involved in times at school, but to write curriculum. So again, PJI is not coming in at this like some prude, like, oh, well, a teenager shouldn't hear about these topics. What we're saying is the schools are tying this to a philosophy that is godless, that has not just godless, no morals whatsoever.
Right.
And that's an important thing. That's why parents need to be involved and need to be closely involved with this kind of education.
Right. And they need to have adequate notice also ahead of time as to what's taking place with regards to relationships, like same-sex sexual relationships. My understanding is that that's a part of this mantra. This is a part of what they're going to be pushing all the way down to the kindergarten level. In fact, I remember when I was in elementary school, we had the girls' drinking fountain, the boys' drinking fountain. Because if you drink out of the girls' drinking fountain, you get cooties. And part of that comes from the psyche of wanting to affirm your gender, your gender identity. It's very, very important. So children, they want that. But what we're talking about is a curriculum that breeds confusion, solicits confusion for children at very young ages.
Right, and we're talking about California here, and because California is way ahead on this, unfortunately, way ahead of most states.
Way behind.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But we've gotten calls from Utah, we've gotten calls from Pennsylvania, Oregon, Washington, Minnesota. All over the U.S., we're getting calls now. So, folks, please be ready for this. This is not just going to stay here in California. This is something that's already happening. New York as well. This is happening there.
Well, Michael, I know we've got some great resources. One is a valuable opt-out form. Actually, we have 50, basically, opt-out forms. We've customized them for every state in the union.
Yes.
And parents can download these opt-out forms for free at our website, and they can protect their kids. How thorough are these? How important are these opt-out forms for every parent who has a child in public school anywhere in the United States to take advantage of?
We've worked hard to make sure that they're accurate and ready to go so that parents can do this. They can opt their children out before the beginning of every school year.
Right. And we at Pacific Justice will defend them without charge if a school decides not to respect that. And that's really important, folks, for you to understand. We have hundreds of affiliated attorneys all across the United States willing to go to bat for you without charge. We also have a wonderful resource. It's a Q&A on the sex education curriculum we're talking about. Now, if you download this, make sure it's not your children reading this, but you're reading this. But Michael, this is a very important resource that people should take advantage of, shouldn't they?
Yes, they should. In fact, it's urgent. They really need to take advantage of this.
Right. And folks, if you want to take advantage of this, go to our website. Either of these wonderful resources, every parent or every grandparent that knows that they have children or grandchildren in public schools or charter school, take advantage of this. Download this from our website without charge. We're not charging at all for this at this time. Go to our website, pji.org. That's P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org, pji.org. Michael, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
If parents knew what was happening, I think they'd be very, very alarmed.
It's not about procreation. They're learning about lifestyles, sexual activities.
This stuff is XXX rated.
And we say no to that.
You're giving girls very high doses of testosterone, and it's going to harm them.
California law requires that school districts actually put a positive spin on the HIV crisis.
This is about sexual roles together, boys, and boys, girls and girls.
You can't teach this in an unbiased way. It's a moral topic.
A lot of graphic information that was confusing.
Tells little boys it's perfectly normal to masturbate with other little boys because everyone does it.
Choose their gender.
The role playing in the class.
That's our children.
So what do?
We need all of you to rise up to fight for kids.
And folks, if you'd like to support the Pacific Justice Institute, it's really easy to do. Just go to our website, pji.org. In addition to the valuable opt-out forms and the sex ed Q&A, we've got something really exciting coming out. It's very important. It's very explicit. It's a video production. We're going to be launching it after the first of a year, and it's dealing with sex education curriculum. It's very explicit, but it's something that you're definitely going to want to have when we release it, so you can be very alert and be able to pass this on to other people. We're going to provide this without charge, but just go to our website, sign up to get our case updates. Just sign up to get our case updates, and we'll be sending this out. We'll be blasting this out to everyone who signed up to get our case updates on our website, pji.org. Also, in signing up, you'll get our Legal Insider newsletter. It's once a week, and it's very brief, and it talks about something that's taking place that we need prayer support for, something that you may want to be aware of, something you might want to do something about. That's also very important. It's our Legal Insider. Just sign up to get our case updates, our Legal Insider, and we'll also send you this very important, very explicit sex ed awakening video that you'll find very helpful in helping to alert parents across the country on how to protect their kids and what's coming to a state or city near them. Now, we have with us on the program right now our Chief Counsel, Kevin Snider. Kevin, thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Kevin, now you have been involved in another very important case out in Florida. In fact, there was just recently a court motion that was heard in Florida that you participated in. What happened? What's this case about?
Yes, a man was arrested for trespass, preaching the gospel next to a public high school. The dismissal bell had rung, and he was standing on a public sidewalk, and the police came and arrested him.
Okay, so it's school's ended, the dismissal bell's rung, he's preaching, he's arrested. Now, he's on the sidewalk, right? He's not on school grounds. He's on the outside part of the sidewalk. Isn't that supposed to be protected speech?
In our view, it most definitely is. And what's worse about this law is they put a 500-foot buffer area so that he couldn't have been even across the street or a block away on the public sidewalk because of this, what they call a school safety zone.
Yeah, a school safety zone, right. The reason they have this is because they don't want kids to hear the gospel. I mean, I don't know of any other reason why they have these bubble zones, except they don't want to allow Christians to be able to share the good news, preach the good news, or hand out Bibles to these kids. You know, it's one thing for government schools to say, okay, we're not going to endorse religion. It's another thing for them to be the big bully and pick on these people who lovingly want to just have the opportunity to share the gospel for those kids who want to hear, who want to listen and be encouraged, something that they're not getting from the public schools. And yet they're engaging in this kind of hostility. Now, we filed this motion. What was the motion about?
Well, Brad, in criminal cases in Florida, it's an interesting state. They allow for what's called depositions, and some may not know what a deposition is. This is where a witness is asked questions under oath before a trial to determine what evidence they might have. So we filed a motion asking the court for permission to take the depositions of the police officers and the school principal. Now, that motion was originally denied, but after reviewing the police body cam, we found gaps in the footage, and the sworn statements of the officers and the principal were inconsistent with what we were looking at. So we filed a renewed motion.
Wow. You know, folks, when you're hearing this, I want you to know that this is the kind of legal work we do for people all across the United States without charge. We don't have rookie attorneys on staff at Pacific Justice Institute at all. I mean, our attorneys are seasoned, and we go through the materials. You know, the fact that we discovered that there were gaps in the videotaping, I think is fantastic. And the fact that we noticed and investigated and found out that the sworn testimony of this public high school principal and law enforcement officers was contradictory. Sworn testimony was contradictory to the facts. And I think that's really important, because what it shows me, Kevin, is that our legal team is taking this kind of case very seriously. We're doing our homework, and we're holding those accountable that should be held accountable. And I think that's very important. Now, let me ask you, this case is obviously is very important. This is a gentleman preaching the gospel, being treated like a criminal, being criminally prosecuted. That's outrageous. But this is not the only case of this kind that we're taking on. We've had these across the country, haven't we? Give us some other examples, please.
Well, of course, we've had them in California. That's not surprising. But Oregon, Washington, Michigan, Illinois, Texas, you handled a couple of those.
Yes.
So they're out there. We're getting them coast to coast.
Right. And the reason I understand that we're taking on these cases because these street preachers and public ministers and some our pastors are discovering that we're the only ones that they oftentimes they say we're the only ones that will help them. We're the only ones that will represent them to keep them from being put behind bars in the United States of America for one thing, and that's for sharing the good news of Jesus Christ, or sharing the gospel, or sharing Scripture. I think this is very compelling It's a very compelling reason, I think, why many people support Pacific Justice Institute and our work and the work that we're trying to accomplish in securing our freedoms and liberties, which are in such great attack as we speak. Kevin, why do we, in your words, why do we take on these cases? I mean, why do you think it's important? Why don't we just simply plea out and just say, okay, look, plead guilty and agree to 2 weeks of community service and it'll all be done. It'll all wash away. Why don't we do that? Why do we go to the mat for each and every one of these without charge to make sure that they're exonerated and they're not convicted like criminals?
Well, as you know, Brad, we spend frankly, a lot of money and time, hours on these cases. And as an institution, PJI has reasons for keeping sidewalks, parks, and the like open for public discourse. As you know, we represent people across the country who've been criminally charged for sharing their faith. There's really two reasons. There's a kingdom interest in keeping public places open to share the gospel. That's self-evident to Christians. Second, there's a Republican interest, and I don't mean by Republican Party, I mean a constitutional republic. Our Constitution guarantees the free exercise of religion and freedom of speech. If that can be enjoyed and only enjoyed in the privacy of your own home, then we've lost that liberty. You're allowed to say, exercise freedom of speech, I suppose, in Indonesia and Yemen and Venezuela. But what makes this country different is you could be out in public and do that. And we think that's a precious liberty that we have to make certain stays open.
Yeah, I know our founding fathers, I mean, this is what they were thinking of predominantly when they talked about free speech. They didn't have television back then. They didn't have radio. What they did is they got a literal soapbox. This is where we get the expression, standing on your soapbox. They'd put it out there in Times Square. That's where people were coming and going and interacting. And they would stand there and they would give their speech, their public speech in a public place, on a public sidewalk. This was protected. This is what they intended to be protected. I recently had 2 cases in Texas. You know, I'm not only licensed in California, I'm also personally licensed in the state of Texas. And I had to fly into San Antonio. I had to defend in criminal court a man, for one thing, for sharing the gospel in a public place on a public sidewalk. Another case was a man who is actually an ordained pastor. He has his master's degree in philosophy and got his master's of divinity from Southern Baptist Seminary in Kentucky. Very gifted man, loves the Lord, criminally prosecuted for 9 months. Couldn't even leave the country to go on a short missions trip because he had these criminal charges pounding against him. They wouldn't drop the charges until finally, it was right before the trial, and we made it very clear we were going to put on a major press conference, and they decided to go ahead and drop the charges, so I didn't have to fly out in that case. But that's what we're talking about here. And Kevin, I want to thank you so much for the work that you're doing. We don't charge a penny, do we, to any of these people we're representing in any of our cases, right?
We charge $1.
Okay, well, I stand corrected. We charge $1, and that's for legal reasons, legal purposes, not for financial gain for PJI. But we take on these cases all the way to the Supreme Court if necessary. And I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. It's so important, and I encourage people to be praying for you and the minister and other ministers across the country who are under attack. Keep up the great work. Folks, I just want to remind you that your support is what makes our work possible. And we have an incredible, unique opportunity right now. It's our $50,000 matching gift program. This is a real matching gift program. So people can give cumulatively up to $50,000. It'll be matched dollar for dollar. And if we don't meet it, it's not going to be matched. It's not like a fake matching gift program. It's a real matching gift program. We are very excited about this. There's no guarantee that we're going to meet it. And yet you have an opportunity, a unique opportunity, not only become a part of our team and become involved in what we're about and making a difference for people all across the country, churches, families, ministers, without charge. But we're protecting you and your community. We're protecting your church, your family, and providing these resources and representation all without charge. Just go to our website, pji.org. That's P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org. Your gift is completely tax deductible, and it's matched double. So dollar for dollar, double with our $50,000 cumulative matching gift program. Take advantage of that as you feel led and called by the Lord to do so. God bless you. If we can ever serve you, please let us know. So folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus, president of the Pacific Justice Institute. Have a great weekend.